mathematicians. Today we're going to be learning about fractions, more specifically about dividing mixed numbers by fractions. To get us started, we're first going to represent 1.5. So here we have one fully shaded rectangle, and here we have half a rectangle. Underneath that, we're going to represent a model of a rectangle in fourths because we're dividing by 3/4 and the denominator is 4, okay? And essentially, we want to figure out how many 3/4 fit into 1.5, all right? In order to do that, we have to represent 3/4 and see how many times that goes into 1.5. So one set of 3/4 goes into 1.5, and then another set of 3/4 goes into 1.5. And as we could see, 3/4 goes into 1.5 perfectly 2 whole times. So our answer is 2, all right? And now here, if we didn't have a model, what we would need to do is divide both of these. But before we start doing that, we're going to take 1.5 and write that as an improper fraction, and then rewrite 3/4. Now, we're going to take 3.5 and multiply by the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. And then we just multiply normally. So 3 times 4 is equal to 12. And then 2 times 3 is equal to 6. 12/6 can be simplified because 12 divided by 6 is equal to 2. So 1.5 divided by 3/4 is equal to 2. All right, now we have 1 3/4 divided by half. So we're first going to represent 1 3/4. So we have one whole shaded rectangle, and we have 3/4 here. And because we're dividing it by half, we're going to have 2 rectangles underneath it that are in halves. And we want to figure out how many times does half go into 1 3/4. So here we have 1/2, so we can make one group there. And then we have another half where we can make a second group there. So far it goes into it 2 whole times. And then we have a third group here, so it goes into it 3 times. But here, we don't have enough to make a group because we would need 2 of these pieces, but we have 1 out of 2 of these pieces in order to make a group. So here, this would be half, because if we had another pink piece, that would make another group, but we only have half of what we need to make a group. So 1 3/4 divided by 1/2 is equal to 3.5. Now, if we did not have our model, we would have to take our mixed number and write it as an improper fraction. So 1 3/4 is 7/4 written as an improper fraction, and we're going to divide it by 1/2. Now, in order to divide, we have to take the 7/4 and multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2/1. And then we're going to multiply numerator times numerator. So 7 times 2 is equal to 14. And then the denominator times the denominator, 4 times 1 is equal to 4. 14/4 can be rewritten, but 14/4, we could simplify that first because they're both divisible by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 7/2 is also equivalent to 3.5, which is what we got. All right? And here we have another example, which is 2 1/6 divided by 2/3. First, we have to represent 2 1/6, so 2 whole models, and then 1/6. And then we want to figure out how many times does 2/3 go into 2 1/6. So underneath it, we're going to represent models that are in thirds, all right? So here we have 2/3, so we can make one group. Then we have another 2/3, so we can make another group. Then we have another 2/3, so we can make another group. And then here, we don't have enough to make another group. So that's 2/3, but notice here that in order to make 2/3, we would need these 4 pieces shaded, but we only have 1. So that would be 1/4 of the pieces we need in order to complete those 2/3 on the bottom. All right, so we would need 3 more pieces shaded because we only have 1 out of 4. So our answer here is 3 1/4. Now, if we didn't have our model, we would have to take our mixed number and write it as an improper fraction, which is 13/6, and divide it by 2/3. Now, in order to solve this, we have to take 13/6 and multiply it by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. Now, 13 times 3 is equal to 39, and 6 times 2 is equal to 12. Now we have 39/12, and we could simplify this fraction by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 3. So 39 divided by 3 is 13, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then we're going to take the 13/4 and write that as a mixed number, which is 3 1/4, right? So here we have our final example, which is 3 1/2 divided by 3/4. First, we're going to represent 3 1/2. So here we have 3 1/2 pieces. And then we're going to divide by 3/4. So we have to represent models in fourths directly underneath. And we want to figure out how many sets of 3/4 fits into 3 1/2. Well, so here we have 3/4. So we have one group. Then we have another 3/4 here. That makes the second group. Then we have another 3/4 here. That makes the third group. Then we have another 3/4 here. That makes another group. And then finally, we don't have enough here to make another set of 3/4. But what we could do is see what fraction we have. So we would need this part right here. So we have 2 out of the 3 pieces below in order to complete another set. All right, we would need 1 more over here of the bottom ones, but we have 2 out of the 3 we need for 3/4, so our fraction is 2 out of 3. So our answer is 4 2/3. Now, if we didn't have our model, we would have to take the mixed number, which is 3 1/2, and write that as an improper fraction, which is 7/2 divided by 3/4. Then we would have to take 7/2 and multiply it by the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. So 7 times 4 is equal to 28, and then 2 times 3, which are our denominators, give us 6. We could take the 28/6 and divide them both by 2. Now 28 divided by 2 is 14, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that is equal to then 4 2/3, okay? So we took our improper fraction, simplified it, and then wrote it as a mixed number. And that's it for dividing mixed numbers by fractions.